Hi guys, it's Dom here from Soundsphere magazine and recently had the great honour and pleasure of chatting to Malachi Black from the House of Black in AEW about his music taste, his thoughts on the progression of the House of Black, his wrestling career, some wonderful fan questions at the end, some very deep, meaningful and personal stuff there, favourite pop songs as well alongside that. So some really interesting stuff here, and I'm really, really grateful to Malachi for his time, for AEW for giving us the time, and I really hope you enjoy this. This has been one of my favourite wrestling interviews ever, and also to talk about music and festivals and things like that. So proud of this one, and thank you guys for watching, and cheers, we'll see you soon. I'm here with Malachi Black. Mate, how are you doing? How are you doing today? How are you feeling? How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well, man. I can't really complain at the moment. Knowing what I know, knowing what I'm going to do and all that sort. So like I have a lot of stuff to look forward to, and yeah, doing well.
Good.
A little bit of a rough couple months, private and professionally, but
Yes.
you know, it's part of the gig. It's part of what we do. Unfortunately, you can't always separate the two because they trickle into to one another. But,
Yeah.
yeah, no, doing pretty well today.
Good man, good man. Well, yeah, appreciate the time. We'll start off with some quick fire music questions, and then we'll go into a little bit of wrestling. So I know you've experienced festivals in Europe and obviously festivals in the US as well. We'll talk about your favorite festival in a little while, but your favorite ever live show, favorite of all time, one that like still gets you.
Oh, that's so difficult because there's been.
You can give me a few. You can give me a few.
This is the same when people ask me what my all-time favorite movie is, and I'm a guy who watches a lot of movies, and it's like I can't just pinpoint it to one.
Yeah.
And then for someone like me, like it also like ties down to it might not be the biggest band or the biggest venue, but it got me the most creatively. I think if I have to, out of the top of my head, Iron Maiden, Sonosphere,
Oh yeah,
Exodus, Download, Terror, Download, Jedi Mind Tricks, Melkweg, Amsterdam, Cradle of Filth.
Yeah.
Download, I want to say.
Nice.
Behemoth. I can't remember in the festival. Slayer, last show that they played in the UK. Sonosphere, I want to say.
Yeah. That's a good selection, man.
I was about to say that's like, and the thing is, like, after this interview is done, I'm gonna sit down and think about the questions, like, why did I mention this or that? You know what I mean? But
yeah,
it's I guess this is a genuine answer then, because this is the first few things that pop into my head. So
yeah, man, yeah, Download's always great fun. I'm looking forward to going back to the mud and the rain this year. I haven't been for a while, so I'm excited about it. Download's a good show for sure. Okay. Aside from, this is a bit of a weird one. Aside from Amenra, because obviously fantastic, most interesting band, the one that you're not necessarily a band that you like, the band that you, but the band you find the most interesting to watch or listen to.
It's a couple, man.
Give me a few. Yeah, let them fly, dude.
I like the old rendition of Ghost a lot.
Yeah.
Because I felt that they were very threading the line of being, they had the mystique when Tobias wasn't like known that it was Tobias Forge, and I like the idea of the magician staying the magician, and
yes.
So the early days of Ghosts I really, really liked. I find them very interesting, very intriguing. Watain, obviously. Watain is one of my bigger like aesthetical inspirations. Shining, even though obviously he's insane, but in the best of ways. Also, he's like, I think he threads the lines of being brilliant and insane quite well, and I mean that in the best of ways. Cradle of Filth for all the obvious reasons.
Yeah, man.
Behemoth, same. There's just a lot of these bands that have such a stage presence, and they do something, you know, something different, and they bring something to the table that has, you know, layers of authenticity, you know, aesthetically, because they understand who they are very well. Their identity is very, very sculpted, very, very, you know, predominant. And I think for me, with what I do and what I, you know, present to an audience,
yes,
you know, I always try to mimic that because that's the thing that grabbed me. But even if you look at like Iron Maiden, for instance, you know, their stage presence and what they did with Eddie on stage, and like, it wasn't just a show. You would see theatrical elements. You know what I mean? And of course, like, you know, you mentioned Amon Ra, and they have that. There's just something so bleak and gray and gritty and suicidal, depressing about their, you know, their performance. And there's another band called Wigedood, I guess is how you would say it, which is a black metal band that, like, you know, falls under the umbrella of the Church of Ra. Matthew from Amon Ra is in that band, and they also have this very minimalistic approach to that. But even like if you go back further, like bands like Devil's Blood, Dutch band, of course. There was just something about their presentation, about the sound. It was haunting, and it captivated me on multiple levels. It inspired me, and I gravitated towards it. Not so much always for just the music, but it allowed me to enjoy the music more because I understood the presentation, because they were so confident in their presentation that it spoke to me, and it drew inspiration out of me of what I wanted to present. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about the presentation in a minute. What my next question is, hairs on the back of the neck. First time I heard Amon Ra and your entrance, and a bunch of your entrances, actually, you know, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up because there's like an atmosphere. And I'm wondering what band does that for you? Again, it doesn't have to be, you know, I'm not necessarily looking for the favorite band or the band that you love the most, but what is it, the band that just does that to you? You know, that makes do you get that? You know what I mean? Does that happen for you with a band where the hairs on the back of your neck?
Yeah, and like the thing is, like, I don't think the names of the bands that I pre-mentioned, like, I don't think it changes very much. It also comes down to like, where am I emotionally feeling it? You know what I mean? This morning I went to Muay Thai training because that's usually what I do on Fridays, and I played the Pact from the band True Love, and it just, you know, like, it inspires me, like you know, it gets me goosebumps, but it gets me it gets me in a fighting mode, because there's multiple types of goosebumps, as you obviously know. You know, it's not just the inspiration ones, it's not just the ones that bring tears to your eyes. Sometimes it's also the one that bring out like this like invoked form of aggression inside of you that makes you want to move forward, right? And that's what, for instance, that's what the band like True Love does to me, or like, I think both albums of Guns Up, you know, do that to me. I'm like those, like, there's a few hardcore bands that like really speak to me, and I think those two predominantly really bring it out to me. But the same with a band like Cruel Hand. They get me. They get me into that fight mode, and Terror does that too. And, you know, taking a page out of my tag team partner Brody, like his band God's Hate does the same thing for me. If you look into their last album, the intro of the last album, if that doesn't, even thinking about it makes me go, oof. You know, if that doesn't get you ready for war, then I don't know what does. The breakdown on that intro song, the breakdown of it is just, it's one of the heaviest things you'll ever hear. And if you're struggling to go somewhere in the morning, if you're struggling to pick up the weight of that bar in the gym, or you're struggling to like walk down your boss's office and ask for a raise, go to the bathroom, plug that in, and just walk in with purpose, because that's what it will make you do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, that kind of answers my next question, but I'm wondering if there's a couple more songs. The song that motivates you on the hardest day, the toughest day, because even you'll have it. Well, we just talked about it, you know, when you've had a rough time. What are the songs or song that you can always go back to that just, you know, that just gets you?
I don't know if I have a specific song. I think, again, it all comes down to how I'm feeling, because I switch so much music out. Like, like one of my friends is Dallas Green from Alexis
Yeah,
is on Fire, and like, but predominantly City in Color is what I
beautiful,
really like. I
beautiful.
love his work, right?
Yeah.
And him and me talk a lot about his music, and a lot of his music is about dying. It's about death, and it's funny how I relate to that, because it's actually, as grim as it sounds, it's one of my favorite topics, because I'm always very intrigued by it. So
Mm.
even when I feel a certain way and I listen to his music, it makes me think. You know what I mean? Like, it's more than just an emotional passage. It allows me to like either like hyper focus on one single thing, or it broadens my horizon to a multitude of things. And I feel like his music does that a lot for me, because it's so calm, and like his voice accompanies his music so incredibly well, because he has such a delicate voice. It's so fragile, but he knows how to use that fragility so incredibly well with his guitar. And he has such a way with words. He's such a wordsmith, and it resonates with me a lot. So and like another one in that vein is Amon Ra. The other one that I would say, and like there's not specific songs that they do that make me go, this is the one.
Mm.
Like, because with a band like Amon Ra, for instance, their whole album is an experience, is a musical experience that like you have to like really sit down for, and like let it happen to you, because it's art in the highest form. And more recently, Absent and Body, which is also obviously the House of Black theme song. And before we go further, because I get this question a lot, right? People are always asking me, it's like, why are you not using Amon Ra anymore? And it's like, well, that's not the case. It's just when the House of Black comes out, we use Absent and Body. When I personally come out as a singles competitor, you will hear Amon Ra. When Buddy comes out, you will hear Buddy's rendition of his entrance theme, and the same with Brody, right? When Brody comes out, you will hear, undoubtedly, you will hear God's Hate, because that's what he wants to represent. So we just wanted to have this blend of music that does exactly what you're asking me, and that song from Amra does that for me, as when I walk out. Buddy has his and Brody has his, and collectively, Absent and Body, does that for us as a unit. So there's so many different styles, and like I have to pronounce this correctly before I butcher it. So let me grab it, because I was just actually going through my Spotify, because all I do is Spotify. So much of like what I do, and like I said, I don't want to butcher, but like one of the bands that like recently really gets me going is Wolf King.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard of Wolf King. They're like, I think they started out more of a hardcore band, and they really put that black and hardcore into their more recent albums. And there's a band that they didn't recently come out, but there's a previous album, a Carpenter Brut. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
The synthwave stuff, yeah.
So he just released an album. I think it's on Death Wish. Like, it's funny because a lot of his songs, because I think Carpenter Brut is a one man band collective thing that he does. It goes from being like almost like industrial metal to having like an 80s pop feel with some of these songs. And like, I love it. Like, I absolutely love it, because it just transcends and trickles down this whole list of like musical buttons that I have, where it's uplifting, it's inspiring, it's bringing out violence in me, it's bringing out violent creativity in me, and it allows me to relax and have fun at the same time. There's like so much music that goes through it. And then the other one that I like, and and this is weird because I never heard of these guys, and that's very rare when that happens to me. But the one band that I posted about a while ago is Temple of Void.
Okay.
I'd never heard of them, and my buddy Enrique from Relapse Record reached out to me and said, "Yo, those guys," because I posted, I'll put up on my stories on Instagram. If you want to have music recommendations, I usually put them on my stories. He reached out to me, and him and me were like talking a little bit about it, and I just started like digging through their other albums, and I'm like, man, these guys are they're beasts, man. Like death metal beasts, like doom / death metal. Let it not be me who puts a label on what someone's music is, but that's how it comes across to me. And it's just like, these dudes are just they're so heavy. They're so like, like almost to the point where it's obnoxious with how heavy they and how strong they are. Like it's a powerful group of guys. Absolutely powerful sound. Very powerful sound.
It's lovely to hear you still discovering music, because again, strikes me as the kind of person, you're in the know. A lot of people send you stuff, and it's lovely to hear that you're still finding stuff that does that for you. You know what I mean? Like, still fascinates you.
One of my biggest things every single day. I
love it.
I'm glad there's a button on that Spotify that has the Discover Weekly thing, and I go through it all the time. It's like it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Man. Yeah, absolutely. I remember Carpenter Brut came to me. One of my favorite bands is a band called Health, and it's like industrial kind of noise stuff. Sure. And I remember getting that recommendation. I got really into synthwave for a bit. Yeah, so I empathize. I understand that. Okay. You mentioned a couple of these already, but as you know, festivals aren't just about the bands; they're about the experience. So, favorite or most chaotic festival experience?
I think the one that really stands out was the first time I ever did a British one, which was when I was still wrestling for Progress.
Yeah,
and we did Sonosphere.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly enough, I haven't actually been to a lot of festivals just because my schedule just barely allows for it. So the majority, not all, but a big chunk of my festival experience actually comes through wrestling. Being brought in by wrestling companies, or we had to be there because of being sent there by WWE at the time, and I'm sure it's going to happen with AW too. And a really funny story that I'll elaborate on a little bit later. Actually, my clothing label Black Mass is going to be on Welcome to Rockville and Daytona, so now I also have my own doing that we're going to be on a festival because we got invited, which is obviously super cool. But back to, that, and I had no idea what to expect. So the night before, no, I'm telling this wrong. So I get to the festival terrain, and everybody's always warning me about all these muddy passages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I'm sure they'll have like some different way for us to get to the terrain, right? They did not. And I came in with these like little loafer shoes that were just they were super cheap and all that stuff. Yeah. By the end of my 20-minute walk, they were absorbed, chewed out, destroyed, annihilated, and eaten by the earth. And I was just like, I have no idea what to do for the rest of the time because I have no more shoes. So I had to dig them up and hose them down and then put them outside my tent and just go in my tent and let everything dry. And the funny thing is that yes, with Progress we did have tents. With WWE, obviously, it was a little different. We had actual beds in a hotel, but with Progress we had our tents and stuff like that. So my shoes 20 minutes in, it was hectic because I was walking through the terrain and my shoes were pretty much gone. I took them off, and then Body Count was playing, and they just released their first, they just released their one of their albums. And I was like, I have no shoes, but Body Count's playing. I'm gonna watch Body Count.
Amazing,
so,
amazing.
It was just like mud and it was horrendous. And then I had to walk another Body Count ended, and everybody moved from one tent to the next thing. And this is not something I was very much used to because the festivals in the Netherlands are smaller, they're different. They have maybe one or two main stages and one or two smaller stages, but a festival like Sonosphere has so many stages, so many bands, so many places to do good and fun stuff. So it was a riot. So I just remember the mud seeming endless, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, I really misjudged this. I really made a grave error here." So that was my first of the UK ones, and probably my most chaotic one, because after that, I never made the mistake again to not have wellies on me whenever I would go to a festival.
I love it, man. I love it. The fact you were in tents and stuff as well. That's great. Oh, man. It reminds me, because I was saying before, I walk with two sticks. I've got cerebral palsy. So when I'm doing a festival and it's really muddy and wet, my sticks will get stuck in the mud and it's the worst. So I do understand to some level But yeah, absolutely. I had a picture of you doing that in my head as you described it. So thank you for that, man. Okay, so I spoke to Brody actually the other day, and he was talking to me about he's in, Lady Gaga and Disney, and I wondered if you believe in guilty pleasures. Do you?
He doesn't. His philosophy on guilty pleasures is, well, it's not a guilty pleasure if you enjoy it. Why would you be guilty? And it's funny. Well, but like, to stay within the paraphrasing of, do I believe in guilty pleasures, so that everybody can understand the question? I do. I always think that, for instance, when you take a band like Dark Throne, right, and they talk about how they're influenced by German dance music from like the early 90s and stuff like that. And even now to this day, like, they draw a lot of inspiration from like certain types of like commercial music. I grew up in the Netherlands, and there was a lot of dance music around us. And when I still did a lot of martial arts in the Netherlands, we used a lot of that to like train, simply because, it's an uplifting beat. It's very motivational. Mm-hmm. And there's a style that I'm sure well, like you're well aware of, called hardcore, or like, it's a really aggressive form of like hard style, which was really big in the early 90s till about halfway across the mid 90s. I'd say 97, 98, maybe trickling a little bit into the 2000s, but not too much, before it kind of like, and I'm talking about stuff like Hellraiser and Thunderdome and stuff like that. So and to this day, like guys like Anger Fist, Neophyte, Stun Guys, and even like the more like lower work of like DJ Paul Elstock or something, I definitely I still like, and I still enjoy. Certain types of pop music. I do actually really like Lady Gaga. I really enjoy Doja Cat. I think she's an interesting one, because she's there's a certain hint of strangeness to this young lady that I really, really like. She's not a run-of-the-mill type of individual, and it's the same with like these other bands, right? Sometimes it's not just about the music per se immediately, but then when you listen to someone's life story or their work or how they think about stuff, it makes you appreciate their music more. It's the same kind of happened with Doja when because my wife is obviously has a very different musical taste than I do, but because of her, it kind of goes, both ways, because she used to think that she knew what rock was until she was like, when she was starting to date me, and she was like, oh, right, this is not System of a Down or Disturbed. Like, I'm like, no, it's not. So, and the same goes for me. And like, my wife will listen to a lot of like Nicki Minaj and, oh God, what's the other lady? Megan Thee Stallion. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of music in there that I thoroughly enjoy. But even growing up as a dude, my friends were all skateboarders. I was a skateboarder. We were in the hardcore scene, but we were also like, a lot of my friends were squatters. So we would build skate parks into like, squatted buildings, and a lot of my friends listened to hip hop. So a lot of like my early skateboarding memories was like Wu-Tang Clan, Gangstar, early days of NWA. Rakim, earlier Jedi Mind Tricks, Nonfiction, Ill Bill, the list goes on, Afura. One of my absolute favorite albums in the world is still RZA's, GZA's Liquid Swords. Like, it's one of my absolute favorite albums. I think in the span of like that, like, if you start closing your mind to like different types of music and just have this one track mind mentality of like what you consider to be music and what you consider not to be music, you rob yourself of a lot of good stuff that, in a weird way, if you let it, can actually inspire you, or you'll find a sound that you actually might really enjoy. And look, there's nothing wrong with saying, nah, it's just not for me. You can say it's not for me, but don't bring it down so you can feel better about what you listen to, right? Yeah. Because that's not something, I don't like the gatekeeping stuff. People need to listen to what they listen to. But in my core as a person, I thoroughly enjoyed more darker, atmospheric forms of metal, black metal, and hardcore, and just various types of metal, alternative music. Yeah. But I don't hate hip hop by any means. I love hip hop. Pop music is not like my to-go-to, but I'm also not someone who kind of like shays away from it.
Yeah.
I enjoy some of the songs. And like I said, like, you know, even with a girl like Doja Cat, I wouldn't really consider it rap or hip hop anymore, because I think that's kind of become pop music now, you know, because the way that a lot of these girls are promoted or are being used in media settings and stuff. You know, it kind of ties into what, like, you know, Britney Spears was back then, like not in the same vein, of course, but like what Britney Spears was back then 20 years ago. Like, the musical styles have changed, but the people are still being promoted in that same way. And I think hip hop kind of went that way, rap kind of went that way, where it's more pop music. It's club music now. You know what I mean? There's no more dance music in clubs. Everything is like hip hop, and you know. But then there's also stuff that I really don't enjoy, is like, for instance, like the mumble rap stuff. I can't. It's just not for me. And hey, don't let me say to anyone that what they're doing is wrong. It just doesn't work for me. It's just like, it doesn't connect with me on that level. So, you know, to the people it does connect to, good for them, but it does nothing for me.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on slightly away from music a little bit. I wanted to ask you, because I spend a lot of time working with young people as part of my day job, and they're obsessed with success, right? And usually it's a music thing. So we work with young people to help them, you know, create music and kind of get their foot in the door, kind of thing. And they're obsessed with success and what that means. And some of them are wrestling fans. Some of them know who you are, and they're like, oh, I'm never going to be, how could I ever be like that? And this comes up a lot for me. They look at people on television, people in your situation, and they're really down on themselves, and they really struggle with that definition of success. So I wanted to ask you, how do you personally define success? What does it mean to you?
How do I personally define success? I think for the greater audience, for a lot of people, success is defined by the amount of materialistic things that you have, which is, in my opinion, very false. Because success is fulfillment of duty and fulfillment of heart and soul and creativity. If your sole purpose in life is to create money and deem that as success, you're going to struggle, because you will never, or not likely, find something that is authentic. I think nowadays it is easier to become famous and successful than it's ever been, ever. And now, before we go any further, I don't consider myself famous. I consider myself to be someone who has a platform because of what he did, but I'm also very aware of the mortality of my platform, because one day all of this will go away. And I think having a sober mind to what it is that you're trying to do helps. You can't listen to everyone, because success has many fathers and failure has just one. So everybody wants to be a part of your success, but the second you fail, all those people that wanted to be with you, they evaporate, right? So you got to be really careful with who you let stand by your side and who you let listen to. For me, success right now is having paid off my house, owning all 3 of my cars, putting my parents in retirement, both of them, being able to support them financially, having created a successful clothing label that is profitable, and being able to do what I enjoy while still having the artistic frustrations that I've had my entire life that also trickle into it as me as a professional athlete, because that is, for all intents and purposes, what we are, no matter how people try to approach it. What I do, besides the theatrics and besides the hyperbolic presentation of what professional wrestling in some cases might be, the inside physicality is nothing less in terms of preparation of that of an athlete, because everything comes together, right? You have to have the right mindset. You have to get the exact same physical preparation. We have to get the same rehabilitation several days a week. We have the same schedules. We have the same feeding patterns. We have the same, mentally and physically abusive patterns, to ourselves. We have the same doubts. We have the same psychological ups and downs as someone who tries to be the absolute best in their sport. And the same applies to us, right? So it is, to me, success is these things. and ask me if I was successful the day I announced my retirement.
Okay. Hopefully we'll get to do a round two at some point. But yeah, thank you. Because again, it puts things in perspective for people. And that's why I wanted to ask the question on record, because it's a different perspective. Again, you don't look at yourself as famous, but it's about what you do with your time and your energy and what you put your energy into. And I think that's a cool message, man, for me personally.
Yep.
Okay.
I think you should always shoot for the highest of your ability, the highest of what you can do. But if you consider success and the only way to success to be the next Roman Reigns, then unfortunately that's a very, very high bar. And I'm not saying you shouldn't set that bar, but I'm saying that you also have to be realistic in your career when you go, all right, I've tried this for 8 years this way. I didn't quite where I need to go. I didn't get the attention that I need to get on it. What have I done so far, and what can I do to elevate this platform that I have now? Because to me, again, that is success. Like, a guy like Roman Reigns is an anomaly. There's only one Michael Jordan, there's one Hulk Hogan, there's one Steve Austin, there's one Rock, there is one Undertaker, there was one Roman Reigns. These guys are anomalies. They transcended professional wrestling in a way that they own their respective IPs to an extent that they connected to an audience worldwide. And to do that is extremely difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, because clearly it's possible, but you also have to be realistic about what you will eventually become in that business, in that frame that that you position yourself.
Yeah. And I do want to ask about your, again, the clothing line, your artistic vision. Now, I'm going to frame this quite carefully. Over the pandemic, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I work with young people with various mental health issues, and I'm certainly not associating those with you, but I would like to know your artistic vision. Like, do you have to do a million things at once? Is it like a compulsion? Like, do you need to create? You've got the clothing line, you've got your wrestling, of course. You've got so many different interests. Where do you create? Do you have a specific place, a place you love to sit down and just come up with ideas? And like, can you sleep at night without, thinking of things to do? Because it sounds like you're a very creative person, and your mind, is quite full a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, I had to teach myself.
Okay.
And I don't sleep much. Okay. I don't sleep much, and to the annoyance of my wife, who sleeps a lot. I had to teach myself a lot because of obviously also like the number of several like mental restrictions, I would say, to put them decent, that I have. I some things I feel different than other people. Some things come, emotionally stronger with me. Some less. Some I'm very sensitive to. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to like my places to create, some of them are deliberate. For instance, if I need to create wrestling, I can do two things. I can sit and watch and dissect and learn and inspire myself, or I can go to a wrestling ring, sit and learn, observe, and go. You know what I mean? So there's two platforms. But sometimes I'm walking down the street and I'm like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just comes to me, right? Okay. And I think when it comes to Black Mass, a lot of it comes from stuff that I have an interest in. At this point, no one's surprised that like I like the occult, or that I have a fascination with like different world religions, and that I find the human mind and what it conveys and what it presents and what it has conjured up and created, I find it fascinating. And a lot of it thrives into the occult because it's a strange thing for the human mind to like, present these things and write these things down. And I find it fascinating. So a lot of it comes from reading too. And sometimes I'll read a book, and 3 years down the line, all of a sudden I think, it'll make for a great shirt. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then all of a sudden it clicks and connects. And it's not always it's not often a forced thing, but more of an organic thing. And that's also the way my wrestling, for the most part, I will sketch outlines.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're going, we're painting the picture, because if there's one thing that you cannot do is say it is going to be exactly this and nothing else. That only happens in a very, very few occasions. For instance, my debut with AEW, that was, this is it. This is how it needs to happen. And it did. But then we're going to go sketch. We're going to draw lines. And eventually we go to week 1. Okay, we drew these lines. It turned into this. Let's paint that picture. Where can we now attach more lines? And where can we sketch ahead? And what is that head going to look like? Okay, here comes an arm. You know what I mean? And it's like, you have to sometimes you have to take it 4 months in a row. But then realize that even in 4 months, if you map out 4 months, there's going to be a lot of changes, because nothing goes in a straight line, especially not in wrestling. People get injured, people get sick, people have family problems, people have physical problems, people have mental problems, people on the day of travel won't allow for something. In the case of like AEW, for instance, there might be a visa problem. You know what I mean? All these things happen, and then you have to think on the fly, but it makes you so incredibly smart to what it is that you want to do, because you've been through this process 10, 20, 30 times, if not more, before, where you were met with a wall, and it's like, what do we do now? You know, and I have a good think tank of people around me as well, and like guys like Buddy and Brody, you know, have good vision too. Like, it's definitely, you know, 3 guys that absolutely help me amplify things that I think, and help me think about moving on. Like, it's no longer one guy with a brush. It's 3 dudes with a brush. And then obviously Tony holds a brush. And then the people that are involved with, you know, they're holding brushes. And it's like, how do we paint this picture so we can all use the same colors and still paint a different picture that displays the same to an audience, you know? Yeah. And that doesn't go smooth ever. It shouldn't. It should, but that, you know, that's the thing. It should not, because if it were easy, everyone can do it, right?
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, 4 or 5 more questions now, man. I do want to ask you, because something interesting about your character, you're one of the only people I've seen that's taken elements of what they've done previously in previous companies and been able to interject it into your, you know, you have the eye, for example, that is changing and growing, and obviously you don't need to go into it as much as you wish to, but I wonder how important is that art of, because I feel like it's an art with you, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like long-term storytelling and the telling of a story to an audience, because it does tie in with what you were doing before in the, you know, in WWE and NXT. Sure. But what you're doing now is it's a long-term thing, you know, and people believe in it. Brody was you know, saying how much he believes in it, and it just seems like there's a real story here. And I wonder, to me, it's an art form. As a fan, to me, I think you look at it like an art form. Am I wrong? How does that feel if I say that to you?
No, you're not wrong, but it's not for me to say it's an art form. That's okay. For other people to say. I approach it like I would approach a good show,
yep,
or a movie that has sequels, or a comic book that has different story elements, right? Mm-hmm. Continuation is what draws people in. And a good movie is a good movie that will stand the test of time, and it will come down to the details of what we tell. And it's not always that like things are being appreciated in their time. And the funny thing is, Heyman used to tell me this all the time, is like, you think too much outside the box and people aren't ready for it. And I think slowly but surely now, people are slowly coming around to what I'm trying to do and have a sense of intrigue with it. Because, you know, if I look at our TV numbers, if I look at our merchandise numbers, you know, we're doing really well for as limited as we've been, to be honest. It's also part of my frustration, right? Because I have this vision, and I have to convey this vision to, you know, the man in charge, and he doesn't always agree. So we have to find a level of where we agree on, and that sometimes causes me to sacrifice part of my vision, but it also causes him to sacrifice part of his vision. But I will always say, he's always done right by me. and he's always found ways to work with me. And I also know that I'm not always the easiest to deal with in terms of like that, because I have if I see something and I know it's going to work, then I'm like, no, if we change one single thing about it, it's not going to come across the way it's going to come across, right? And also, to refer back to Brody and stuff, he's a good clank board for me, because I've also had to learn to let certain things go.
Okay.
You're never going to get 100%, right? You're never going to get that camera angle that you wanted. You're never going to get that verbiage that you wanted. You're never going to always get, this big moment that you're not, and like, but it's okay. It's all right, because not only do we work on the rebound, because everything is adjustable, we work in a way that we can do damage control, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes circumstances happen. And that, again, everything about what I'm saying is absolutely fine. It's just me that had to learn to kind of go, let the ropes go a little bit. Okay. Stop yanking it so tight. Let it go. Breathe. It's fine. It's going to be okay, right? It's going from feeling that I was never in control in prior, from coming out of NXT where I was almost completely in control, because Hunter was really someone who worked with me and would just say, what do you want to do? How do you envision this? This is the story that we have mapped out. How do you see it happen, right? Yeah. And him and me would work together. To go into the main roster, where there's a lot of people with their hands in the pot, trying to, stir the best dishes and trying to cook the best meals. Yeah. But there is one main cook that has a vision, and it's very difficult to get him to, remove him from his vision. And it's not up for me to say if it's bad or good. I just know that it didn't work for me. It was something that I couldn't really work with. So then going to AEW, where I had complete range of control, to having levels of control, to now having that same cooperative relationship that I had with Hunter that I have now with Tony, right? And something that I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just that for me and Tony, we both sometimes have to find the ground on which we think is going to be the best for the audience. And I think we've done a really good job so far, but it's a learning curve for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is Tony's first ever go at a wrestling company, and look what he's done.
Yeah.
Look at the audiences. Look at the people he has in his locker room, and that's a testament of how committed he is and how much he loves what he does, right? And it's the same with me. So we share a big vision together. We share this idea that this is a good business, and that we both love the business, and that we want to do business. And then like having this idea for the House of Black, and then we we coincide this whole thing together, and we created this thing, and it's like it's a powerful thing, I mean, it's a crazy feeling to accomplish something like that. And then it's like, well, what do we do now? You know what I mean? And that's where we were for a little bit. We're like, what do we do now? Because hey, guess what? Hey, yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
Shit. What do we do now? You know what I mean? So, but now I really think that we found it, and the coming weeks, the coming months, hopefully will be a good representation of that. And I'm very thankful for Tony for giving me this platform, and for allowing me to, have guys like Brody and Buddy at my side, and allowing us to have a really good communicative relationship with him, and, throwing ideas back and forth and getting his feedback. It's just, it's a very pleasant relationship, very pleasant relationship.
That's good to hear, man. That's really good to hear. And I've only got a few more. Thank you so much for taking out so much time for me today, man. Wanted to ask the entrance, okay? Like, for you, is it about the atmosphere? Because that is, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass here, man. Like, I am a fan of wrestling, but a fucking beautiful entrance. Like,
Sure.
The atmosphere is, again, spine tingling. We talk, the hairs on the neck. Is it everything you want it to be? Is it everything that you want it to be? going forward as well? Is that your vision perfectly on the television? Okay.
Yes, that is like this is one of those things where I was like, no, it has to happen like this.
Yeah.
And he granted me that. You know what I mean? So I was very thankful that he was like he allowed me to have this vision to create this entrance, this character, this aesthetical look. The entrance actually came about again, like, you know, having this like strange interest in death. If you look at the entrance, the first light is behind me, which represents dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm standing on the turnbuckle and the light shines on top of me, which is when the sun's at the highest point of the day, which is between 3 to 6 p.m. Then I'm sitting in the middle and the light kind of comes from a somewhat downward angle and the light's dimmer and it's the moonlight basically. So it's the cycle of day. It's a representation that everything that starts has to come to an end. So that's basically the idea behind the entrance. And the same is done with when we do the House of Black entrance. That same cycle is repeated basically.
Yeah, it's just a stunning, just again a work of art, man. Before we do the plugging questions at the end, I have two questions sent in for you. One is a serious one or a more serious one, and one is a bit more of a light-hearted one. So
sure.
The first question sent in was from a young person who, again, has been through a lot in their life. They're struggling with a lot of negative feelings towards themselves, and they've really, you know, they're really down on themselves. They feel a lot of guilt and shame and a lot of hopelessness. And they said they wanted me to ask you if you've ever been through a feeling of hopelessness. Obviously, go into it as much or as little as you wish. And how did you get out of that? How did you get out of that feeling or that emotion of hopelessness if you've ever been through that?
That's a really tough question, and I empathize with this young person because that's not good feeling young and feeling like that. But you know, I'd be a liar if I said that I didn't feel the same in that age, right? There's things about myself that I haven't told anyone that the people around me know, and maybe one day I will open up about it, but it's not something that I would like to share with crowds now, you know. But in regards to that feeling of hopelessness and that feeling of shame, oftentimes that's influenced by others. Oftentimes that's because how others make us feel. You know, the impact from people that are around us, especially when you're young, when you're so susceptible to the voices of other people and you're so susceptible to, you know, what happens in your environment. Like being a young person now in 2022, if I would be 16, 17, I don't know if I would make it, you know what I mean? Like with Instagram being the way it is, with social media being the way it is, with like let's take Twitter, for instance. I have Twitter on a separate phone because I simply do not care about it anymore. I'll post a picture, I'll post a tweet, and I will leave my phone. I don't look at the reply. I'm just like over it because we've created this scenario where we're so comfortable bashing other people's work, bashing other people's appearances, and constantly thinking that it's almost like hilarious to lash out from a point of insecurity, which we don't admit or like admit to ourselves, and you know, a point of self-loathing where anyone who has a remotely different platform than us, you know, we feel we need to bring them down. Because I feel like nowadays it's almost like there's like people just continuously waiting for you to fall down, right? Because if something happens, everybody piles on top of it, which I always think is like a really strange, like, it doesn't matter how little it is. We'll just take this little cut and we'll just all collectively yank it open and like, you know, rip it open. Even if it's not that big, we'll make sure it's big enough for you to never have any success. And that's just such a hateful way of like, you know, moving forward. And it's often the people that have the biggest skeletons in their closet. But to this young person, self-acceptance is the hardest thing in the world. You know, but also please realize that you're feeling this way for the most part because how other people have made you feel, how things that are not real have made you feel. And oftentimes the people that lash out at us or judge us or put us in a position where we feel, certain depravity over ourselves or embarrassment or shame is because they themselves, as cliche as it sounds, they project what they feel onto you so that they can, it's almost like they're trying to like pass it on to you. It's your fault. And, it's such a hard society nowadays where everything is done remote, everything is done hidden, everything is done, from the secludedness of private profiles and anonymous people. And, I like I said, I can't imagine being in high school right now and having an Instagram and like having school bullies, like, going at you and you'll never know who it is. That's awful, and I'm not saying that this is what that is, but I think a big part of it is that, society's changed so much and we put put the eggs in our basket in like this social media stuff and all the stuff that isn't real. It makes us feel like terrible. Like there's no possible way that you can't tell me that if we look at, suicide rates in teens or depression in teens or diagnoses in like teenagers now versus 20 years ago, that it's not higher now because everything is so open, right? Everything is so available and like everything is so exposed. And, we see all these people that live these like fantastic lives and, they promote things but even those things, they're not real, but it's so hard to understand because here you are looking at it and we are convinced that social media is a part of our reality. And it's strange because, we call them phones, but the last thing nowadays they do is call, right? Yeah. They're devices. And I feel like a lot of it comes from that, a lot of the insecurities, as much as I think that it has done well because it's also allowed a lot of people that were more antisocial to be able to connect with other people from a safe place, from a safe position. So, I can't bash it all the way, but, for me, for someone with a platform, what I see, and also like a lot of times the nonsense that I see, the comments that I see, that it just doesn't make any sense. I think a lot of people are also like, we've confused this idea that being argumentative continuously is like a form of intelligence because we're so terrified that people think that we're dumb. Like, especially that part where everybody wants to be this like player one kind of person, but for the most part, the people that do that the most have these like NPC lives, you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with being, and I use the word mundane, but I don't mean it bad, right? Not everybody needs to be a top tier anything. You need to be happy with you. You need to be content with yourself. There is nothing bad about being you and being happy about it, but other people, because they don't feel that way, want you to feel bad because they're feeling bad because they're not accomplishing what they want to accomplish, and therefore you cannot accomplish it. And therefore I am going to say hateful things to you so that you feel terrible about things that I actually feel terrible about. And that's a sad thing, man. Like, I wish that we could, lift each other up more. I was actually thinking about the other day about this because it was Liberation Day in the Netherlands a couple days ago, which is obviously, growing up with two grandfathers that have several stories in World War II's resistance. And I've had several family members imprisonment in camps and killed in camps for political discourses and religious discourses. One of my aunts was in a fascist camp in Japan where she was tortured. She was a nun. She was tortured and killed. I had uncles that were in camps in the Netherlands. And my grandfather used to tell me, and he couldn't tell a story about World War II without crying because he went through so much. My grandfather always said there was such a feeling of unity to help one another, to help people, to make sure that other people were okay. There were a lot of people, there was a lot of bad stuff, obviously, in World War II, but horrendous things that we should not forget. But there was a lot of feeling of like unity. People came together and people wanted to help each other. And I feel that feeling, to an extent, is almost lost, where we don't want to help each other anymore. And I feel we drift away from we're being numb to consequences. We're being numb to the effect of our words, and we're being numb to the effect of our actions.
Yeah.
And that is never a good thing, because you should always be aware of those, because, and I'm living proof of that, if you're not aware of those things, you cannot grow as a person. You want that success in life?
Yeah.
You better start realizing that you're going to have to do a lot of things about yourself to improve, and a lot of things, you have to do a lot of growing up.
Absolutely.
If you want to accomplish this emotionally and mental feeling of like success, whatever that respectively is for any person in the world. And I think that's the most important one. So to that person, I'm incredibly sorry that you go through this. I hope that any of my words will give you some form of, some form of idea, because perspective is what you need. You don't need a solution, you need a perspective, because if there was a solution to this, then my words or other people's words would have no effect, because you need to figure out what your solution is, because everybody goes through these things differently, and everybody will feel these things differently. And you will one day find the solution, but one of the solutions that you hope that I don't think you're thinking about is not the answer to anything, because there is a lot that you have and that you should have. And the one thing that you have, one undoubtedly, is a heart and mind and soul.
Yeah.
And that's the most valuable thing to keep, even when you go through these things.
Yes. Brilliant, man. Brilliant. I'm very well aware we've really got a bit more time left. So again, thank you so much. Quickly then, your favorite pop song was the second question, because some people said to me, they were like, he doesn't listen to pop music. So that's and as we know from this interview, that is a assumption. So what is your one or two favorite pop songs?
Oh man, I don't even know if it's like really pop, because like even growing up, I was a big fan of like Genesis and Dire Straits, and like my brother was a big U2 fan, so I think one of my favorite songs, like because it's so ridiculous, is Genesis "I Can't Dance," because it's such a layered song.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought Phil Collins' lyrics were funny, and the way that he's like self-deprecating and like in the video clip, and just like it's just a funny song. But my favorite pop song, that's as if my wife is looking at me doing this. She's like, well, this better be a good answer. My favorite pop song, geez. Oh my God. Oh,
sorry, put you on the spot. I'm sorry, man.
No, I think I know, because like this is one of those songs that I think me and Brody kind of bonded over. It's Every Time We Touch by Cascada. I think that's like that's a really fun song, because it came out of nowhere, and like we were driving not too long ago, and I had this random playlist on, and it pops up, and we're both in the car going like side-eyeing each other, and we started singing the song, and we're like, "You like that song too?" I was like, "I love that song, dude." So that was a fun little moment between me and him. Bless him, I love him a lot.
Nice.
He's like my little brother, even though he's like 4 times my size. And I think he might actually be a little older than me. I'm not sure, but he's definitely more accomplished in life, having 2 children. So he's a better man than I am. But yeah, I think that might be one of my favorite ones. And my wife just jumped in the air, did this when I said that. Yeah, so that's funny. Yeah, I would have to go with that one. I think cool. That was that's a more recent one, and there's a fun story tied to it. And it's pretty much the first one that popped into my head. So cool. Yeah, let's go with that one.
I hope you both have a dance post interview. You can all have a dance to that banger. It's promo time then to finish off. What is your message to the House of Black constituents, members in the UK? We're on the UK, obviously. What is your message to those people that have supported you, and what can they expect? We have Double or Nothing coming up, obviously, on pay-per-view, but what can they expect from the House of Black that you can tell me about? Because I know there's a lot of nuances, but what is your message to your UK fans?
My message to the people of the House of Black in the United Kingdom chapter is that I appreciate your support, and I appreciate all you have done for me and for the house. And I encourage you to keep doing all this for the house, because every single day we grow stronger, and every single day we accomplish more and more. And whether it takes us 3 weeks or 3 years or 30 years, eventually we will get what we are owed, which is the AEW, hopefully trios titles, which is the AEW tag titles, which is the most prestigious title in the world, which is the AEW world title, being around either my waist, Brody's waist, or Buddy's waist. And we can't accomplish that mission without you. And ironically enough, yesterday we launched a pretty big campaign on blackmass.com where a lot of people were able to pick their sides in regards to the House of Black. And a lot of these inquiries and invoices and forms of materialistic payment came from the United Kingdom. So I'm extremely happy to provide my people with what they want and what they choose that their life to be is, which is in service of the house. So
Brilliant.
Thank you, United Kingdom.
Brilliant. And thank you so much, Malachi, for your honesty, your time and your reflection today. I really, really appreciate all of your time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Thank you, dude. Have a good one.
You too.